when I'm in touch with myself as a spiritual being rather than my name, my physical form, my external identity, the profession that I have, my designation, etc., in that spiritual consciousness of being that being within, I'm in touch with my own conscience. My conscience is awake and alert and is able to give me guidance. And for most people today, it's very difficult to hear the very quiet voice of the conscience speak inside, maybe because they don't give it enough time. Because you need to let your mind become quiet, otherwise the mind is like the chattering monkey that's on and on and on. And of course, all the things that we're surrounded with, all our devices are adding to that non-stop flow of information. And there isn't a moment just to stop and be still and ask myself the question, should I not? And because we're missing out on that, then we get pulled into whatever becomes the social norm. And you can see how from a society generally that had morals and values, there was a downward slide to a society where maybe people didn't bother too much about morals, and maybe they knew what they were doing was wrong, but they still carried on doing it. So you get to the state of immorality. But then you get to a state of amorality, which is quite normal nowadays, where people will say, oh, don't even talk about morals anymore. So amorality, where morals don't have an influence on human life and policies and the way in which things are going. And so definitely the moral compass, the conscience, awakens through silence, through spirituality, knowing myself. And that's also the guideline that gives me the principles on which I work within my field of expertise, my profession, the policies we create. You see some of the debates that go on in the world, and there's a long list of them. And we're not really looking at the values that are innate to human beings. And so we're going totally against that in so many different situations. Maybe it's a question of building more and more casinos. Maybe it's the question of lowering the age of consent. Maybe it's the issue of racism. Maybe it's all sorts of things like this that we're having to deal with. But ethics and values are connected with the spirit within, and spirituality means exploring my own being within. And so yes, definitely spirituality allows the awakening of the conscience, the moral compass, and to allow ethics to come back into our lives and public life also.
Okay, and has that started already? So don't I need to get my, can I get my, yeah, because I need like 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. It needs to go down a little bit, I think. All right. Om Shanti. Welcome back to part 2. Don't you love it? This is a conversation that Antonia and I... Santosh, could you turn down the volume? Antonia and I were having a conversation the other day how when she had retired, it was at our Diwali event yesterday, that she decided to retire and she bumped into the meditation museum thinking she was going to sit and just om all day. And perhaps for many of you, and I'm just waiting for them to turn on the Facebook Live so we can actually begin the recording of the 4th class in Raja Yoga meditation. Santosh, would you like some help? Yeah. For them to turn on the live? I don't see the red button though. It is? Oh, okay. It's streaming. Oh, okay. All right, great. So as I was saying that she wanted to come and just sit and do nothing. And it turns out that when you're optimizing your vibrations and your energy as a person, you can't sit there and do nothing. You know, you're going to want to do something with the energy that you're sitting on. And we always say, if someone's extremely wealthy and they're miserly, we always say, what a waste, right? Because you think if you've got so much abundance, why aren't you using it for something good? So similarly, when our spirituality and our intention and our wisdom and our experiences are increasing, it's to our advantage and to the world's advantage. For those of you that are joining us on Facebook, and if you had a chance to participate right before this segment, we participated in the Middle East Peace Experiment, which was led by author, bestseller Lynn McTaggart. And so for you to just get a little bit of an idea about that, please go to that to learn more about what we just did. We just communed with 9 countries, and all were in the Middle East, including Israel. And we were the only place in the United States of America participating in this experiment. And I thought that was huge, that we got this in Washington, D.C., that we participated in this very needed experiment, where we created our pure thoughts and our pure feelings to transmit our love to an area in the Middle East called Yemen, where there's been affected by a lot of war, and unfortunate an imbalance of governing. So here we are now. We have moved into now lesson number 4. You know, when you play golf, they say 4. So this is the big one. So lesson number 4 is really going to be a continuation of the lesson on karma that we did last time. And we're going to move even deeper into the significance of karma. One of the reasons why we have the hair we have, the color we have, the body we have, the gender we have, the personality we have is all because of karma. Who wants to give me a little bit of a feedback of what they recalled from the lesson on karma last time? What did you take from the lesson that we did on karma? What was your takeaway? Whatever you put out, you get back. Thank you for saving me. That was good. Anybody else remembered anything from that session? That your intention is very important. Exactly. You weren't in the session. Yeah. Yes. So karma is accumulation of bad and good deeds, and we're now in a particular period in our lives that we want our deeds to be really good, really good. Karma, wonderful. Karma are choices that we make using our senses. Wonderful. That was a good one. Can we change our karmas? And how can we change our karmas? Let's say financially things aren't working right. What would you do to change your financial karma? Give. That's a good one. Anything else? Especially when you don't have it. Would you give? What would you give when you don't have it? You would give love. What else would you give? time, what else would you give to shift your financial burden of karma? Good wishes. Practically, your mortgage can't be paid, your insurance can't be paid, your car note can't be paid. There's only one more box of milk left in the fridge, and forgive me for all the vegans in the room, but there is no money in your bank account nor in your purse. What would you generally do in that position? Generally, in that position, you would go to someone who you think could help you, wouldn't you? So you would go to a friend or a relative and say, I'm just a little bit on some hard times. I just need a break. Could you just lend me $1,000 until a month so I can just get over the hump? We would do that, wouldn't we? But even in asking for the $1,000, sometimes we feel like it's like an attack on our dignity, like this is not where we want to be. So at the same token, the soul is thinking thoughts about, how did I get here? What have I been doing? How did I manage getting myself in this place? So there are some people who have had to put out a lot of money because of health, because of circumstances beyond their control, and then they had to make sacrifices with the intention it'll come back. I know I'll be taken care of, but it doesn't dispute the fact that they've had to endure a lot of hardship. So then you go to someone and you find a way to, ask for a loan from a friend. They give it to you with resistance. You don't feel good asking, and you definitely didn't feel good taking, but there is an element of comfort because now you can put a little bit more food in the fridge, and you can pay your car note and your insurance, and you can hold off on the rent. So then in your mind you're feeling, I've got a month. I got to do something more with a month. You getting me now? So when you're looking at the whole area of karma philosophy, it will always keep asking you to give more than you're receiving. Always. When you feel like you're trapped or you're in a position where it's not working out for you the way you're intending, you begin to realize that you're being called to give more than you're receiving. So the continuation of today's session on karma, I want us to focus again on those 4 key areas that are very important in helping us to maintain our happiness. So taking into consideration the example that I gave you about the whole law of karma in terms of our finance, I go to the person, I don't feel good. I get the money, I don't feel good, but I feel a sense of relief. Think of all of this at a soul level. I feel a sense of relief because I'll still have my car for another month, and I'll still have my apartment for another month, and I'll have a little bit more food for another month. But everything in my consciousness is, not only am I in debt, I now have to find an extra $1,000, which I didn't have before. Think about it, right? Now here's some of the things that we do, which means that algae is the vibrational intention in my finance. I get the month extra. But then what I've stopped observing is that I'm still behaving the same way I was behaving before I got in the situation. Some of us go to a lot of fast food chains or fast food outlets to get food. You have no idea how much money you can save instead of buying a soda or a sandwich at a convenience store, that what that can do when you use that money and go to a supermarket and buy something in bulk or just buy something for you. We had traveled to Puerto Rico a few years ago, and it turned out that we went on a service assignment, and the irony to this trip was the sister who rented the car, she left her driver's license and her credit card. And then when we got to where we were going to stay at the hotel, we realized none of us took any money, and none of us had a credit card. And she was the only one that had like $3.80. And we were so hungry. And what we ended up doing is, don't worry, because we took our rice cooker, because we don't eat out at restaurants. We find them expensive, and we're very sensitive about the vibrations in which people cook for us. So we took our own rice cooker. You know, we went to the store, we bought a little rice, it was 90 something cents. We bought a head of cabbage. We bought one little chili, a potato, and some frozen peas, and that came up to $3.20 something cents. And we took that food back to the hotel, and we cooked that meal, and not only did it serve the three of us, but also the folks who came to visit, and they loved that food. Now, that's a real life example of something we all went through. And many of us are not aware that the way that we waste our money is sometimes areas in which we can begin to pay attention. So fast food restaurants, fast food convenience stores, renting things that are really taking up, when you add up how much money you're wasting at the end of the month, you realize, you know what, I could have saved so much. So what happens is when you're thinking from a place about how my peace is important to me, my purity is important to me, my joy is important to me, my love is important to me, and my truth is important to me, when you begin to use that intentional vibration, you become more economical with your funding. Sometimes Reverend Sylvia and I will go out and I'll just say, I just need to treat myself. And she'll tell me, you deserve it. You deserve it. But it's not like an everyday thing. It's like once every 5 years. You know what I mean? And so it's just okay when it's once every 5 years. But when we're doing it every month, where we're feeling that we need more, it's not really needed. So I'll guarantee you that if you begin to change your consciousness in how you earn your money, how you spend your money, you will have more money. Now, that's not disputing that there are situations that come into our lives and just say, I'm taking a chunk, or situations and relationships where people move away from you and it was a big chunk. So again, it puts you in a position, what more do you have to do? Because at the end of the day, you can't blame the person. You can't blame your divorce for the situation that you're in. You can't blame the government for taking away your health care or your 401k, whatever it might be. It's like, how do I get out of this? At the end of the day, I have to fix myself. So you want to learn how to really value money. And there's one thing that I've learned from India, is that many individuals who come from India, they still think in rupees. And one US dollar converted in rupees is 70 rupees. So when they're spending $1, they're thinking 70 rupees. You know, and they're very mindful of every penny that they're spending. So I want you to start to think about the importance of $1 and what it's actually worth. But more than anything else, I want you to think about the enormous amount of energy you are using to earn that money. That is it worth the spend? Because your earning of energy, your energy of earning is important. So now let's go to relationships. One thing about relationships, they're like a stairway. The same stairway you take up, it's the same stairway you're going to take down. And that's what relationships are like. It's like through this relationship, I feel the greatest joy. And through that same relationship, I'm like, oh, Lord, help me. How in the world did I meet this person, right? And so that happens in terms of relationships. That people who come in and out of your lives are actually opportunities for you again to check, well, how am I valuing myself? Will reflect in how you value the other person. So in our class, when we focused on being soul conscious, which is the love, peace, and purity, that when you are focusing more on taking care of yourself, your spirit, which includes your mind, your body, your choices, that if you lived with a relationship with yourself using these fundamental qualities, you know for sure your relationships are going to be okay. because you're no longer extending your inadequacies on another person to fulfill what you are not taking care of. And one of the main reasons why we're struggling in our human relationships with one another is that, known or unknown to us, we are hoping and waiting for the other person to give us what we have not been able to give ourselves. One thing I know for sure is that if you're taking care of your being, and if you are fulfilling what is needed for you, you're going to have less demands on the person outside of you. Remember that. If you're taking care of your needs, if you're fulfilling what you're supposed to fulfill for you, you are going to have less demand on the person outside of you. You're going to be more in a mode of acceptance and appreciation of the person. And it'll be an intentional vibe that you're both just moving with the same wave, because each person is taking care of themselves. And one of the reasons why relationships are so conjecture right now is that, unknown to us, we're still subtly hoping and praying that that energy gives me what I need. Because there's still something that I am still looking for. And every one of us are in that boat. Every single one of us. So in the mornings when you wake up, the most important relationship to begin with for the day is between you and your relationship with Source. Good morning, good morning, good morning. What do you have in store for me today? I used to wake up every morning for about 2-3 years. Oh, another day of fortune, another day of fortune. Even if I was just sitting there doing nothing, I just knew it was a day of fortune. Right? And so you have to wake up, and that's your choice. You've got to wake up and trigger your energy. I'm always reminded of these old vehicles that first used to be the crank-up cars. Remember those? Anybody old enough in the room to remember crank-up vehicles? James, you remember those, don't you? All right. So we used to have to crank up these vehicles to start them up. And so in the same way, in the early morning hours, we're going to have to crank up our consciousness, because if we don't, we will begin the day in an algae state again. And if you start the day in an algae intentionality or in an algae influence, your whole day will move with algae. And that's what we don't want. So when we're meditating, we're interrupting the intensity of algae in our consciousness on a day-to-day basis. So when you're taking care of the soul through your thoughts, your words, your deeds, your actions and behavior, you are performing good karma. And the return of that good karma is that you're starting to feel a better relationship with you. And it starts to show. One of the things that I found in terms of my relationships now, I am 50 times so much more genuine in my presence with individuals. There was a time when you would have to be yourself based on you were young, trying to get it, and you were trying to move the table and make things happen. Then there was another period in which you questioned or doubted your capacity. Then there was another part of you in which you kind of weren't sure if you should go any further. Maybe you can settle here. But there's always going to be a part of you that has to be true. So as you're maturing into a better version of you, you will find that you are okay with wherever you're at. Like you're definitely more accepting with where you've reached, but you're very open for more room for change. And that is so vital for everyone to understand. Don't judge your story so soon. There could be a lot of things open up and waiting for you, but once you tell yourself this is it, then that's exactly what's going to happen. So do not put a title on your life, not yet. Just be open for the growth, okay? So the continuation of karma, and this is a big one, because in the Middle East Peace Experiment, what we just performed was good karma by using our thoughts to keep generating pure feelings. Now, I want you to tell you where this karma becomes negative. It's when you have thoughts about people or about the self that are negative. And when you have negative, wasteful, or useless thoughts over a long period of time, it creates in itself its own ball of vibrations. Remember the example I gave you of the iceberg? Remember the iceberg formula? So you see right underneath the iceberg where the real big chunk of the iceberg is? Because our thoughts are so subtle, whenever we start to have negative or waste thoughts, it goes into that more subtler realm of our consciousness, which is the subconscious, but it's carrying a fragrance and energy about my karmic results. And that's why many of us are doing things and we will tell ourselves, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve what you did to me, and I don't deserve where I am. This isn't fair. I did everything right, but what is happening, there is another energy functioning that I'm not in tune with. So that subconscious energy, a lot of that debris of vibration, which is dictating the results of our action, is coming because we are having a lot of wasteful thoughts that we're not in touch with. The story I gave about this couple, fresh, newly married couple, and the daughter-in-law is having a really hard time with the mother-in-law in the house. And she's so convinced the mother-in-law just hates her. But she does what she does. She keeps her husband happy. They just had a child. She cooks every day. She feeds the food hot to her mother-in-law. And her mother-in-law, she just looks at her and she just knows her mother-in-law hates her. But every day she would put the food on the table and smile and make sure it was hot and please her. So she finally ended up talking to a friend of hers who was very wise, and she says, I don't know what else to do. I've been living with her for 2 years. I've done everything she wants. I make sure I'm humble. I take care of her son. I take care of her grandkids, but she hates me. The woman is so awful to me. And so his friend says, I get that. There might be some karma, but have you ever had any negative thoughts about her? She says, every day. Got that? So at one point, she felt she was doing everything right, but she wasn't aware of what her thoughts were doing in terms of the relationship. And that's where I want you to pay a lot of attention to your mental karmas. Pay very attention that you are not thinking thoughts about people who have hurt you and wishing them to be unwell, wishing them to suffer as much as they've made you suffer, wishing them to have it not as good because you think they don't deserve it. There has to be a point in you where you find the dignity within your mental capacity to say, in order for me to be free of this relationship I had with you, I need to let you go. Now that's easy to say, but you have to begin to also look at your level of pain. If your pain is really deep, you're going to have to find a way to let it go. So what I would recommend that you do, it's even if it doesn't feel comfortable, every day if the person comes in your mind, just one good wish, bless them, Om Shanti them, I bid you peace. And even if 90% of the rest of the way you feel is charged with emotions for them, don't pay any attention to them. Focus on the fact that before you couldn't even give them 10% of your good feelings, but now you can. So you do whatever little you can, starting with that, because it's not easy to release that vibration. It sometimes takes time. So you want to make sure you check on that mental karma, because that mental karma is one of the bedrock of your well-being, of joy, happiness, a sense of intuitive security. You'll have a great sense of intuitive security if you've been practicing having well wishes over a long period of time. And many of us are wired to live intuitively anyway. Health. As I mentioned in the last session, it's important that you begin to really pay attention to not only, a conscious diet, but to a particular awareness of how does the food really get on my table? Who puts it there? What's the reason behind it getting there? And just think about it. And even if you don't feel that you can support it because the habit of the way you've been eating is so firm in you, then you just find a way in at least reducing it. You know, whenever I go to India, after a while, 2, 3, 4 days, the food gets to me, and I just have to cook or make something that I'm familiar with. So I understand when the food is very similar to your palate, it's not so easy because food is connected to your emotions. We eat according to our emotional state and makeup. And so when we're shifting our diet, we're also shifting our emotional conditioning, which is huge, So when you're moving towards a more conscious-based diet, which is a diet that's non-violent, and a diet that has more freshness and life in it, you will begin to feel that your consciousness has more life. So you'll begin to see that your body, your mind can do more than how it used to do when you used to eat a diet that wasn't so conscious. So when it comes to karma, you'll realize that all of these factors play a very, very big role in the cyclical story of how life unfolds for you. And I want you to imagine a cycle. And I want you to imagine the cycle having 4 ages of awareness in it. Take some time, because karma is cyclical. What goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. Which is why anyone who does evil, I try not to add any more of my evil to it, because I'm so clear there is a law of cause and effect, and there is no way you're going to escape what you're doing to people. Now, I don't wish for them to get the return of what they're going through. I'm just observing that the amount of pain I see you giving people or a person, it saddens me because I'm aware it's going to be returned. Now, the whole notion of karma philosophy can tend to be a little bit kind of hard to accept, because you wonder, why is it that certain people go through certain things and others don't? To be honest with you, I don't really need to figure that out. I don't really want to be in your business, why you're born without food. But if I have food and I can help you, let me try. I don't really want to figure out why you're born without dignity, or why you don't have proper drinking water, or why you're born blind or poor or paraplegic or rich or gorgeous or intelligent or not so intelligent. Obviously, there's something that you've been doing karmically that has manifested that. What I want to know is if somehow, some way, if you have come in my life, and it seems as if you need proper drinking water, and I happen to have the ability to share without putting myself in harm's way, then I don't mind sharing my water with you. But if you keep coming after me 5, 10, 20, 30 times, give me water, because you have water, and I'm living my life and I'm noticing that you're not doing anything to help it, then it'll be like, I don't have to do that. I've already offered you my water with love. I can do it 2 or 3 times, but I don't think you should expect me to do it for you all the time. So it comes a point where each and every one of us have to stand up in ourselves, despite how low we can go. I was sharing a story earlier that there was a particular period in my life where there were a group of people who were just extremely unkind to me. And they spoke ill of me. They defamed my character. Whenever I'd walk in a room, they would leave the room. When I would enter the room and they couldn't leave, you could just feel the energy as if they were only gossiping on the Sister Jenna channel. And I just thought to myself, what is this energy? I don't ever remember having feelings of people like this on me. I came from a culture where I had a lot of friends, a lot of people, and a lot of love. It was very human, but it was still love. And it was the grace of God that protected me, because something inside of me used to definitely be in pain. But I remembered going to God in my meditations and saying, but you never said those things about me. So who do I believe, them or you? And that was the narrative and the conversation that saved me from going down a downward spiral of thinking I was worth nothing, versus to saying, but God says I am something. And so many of us have encountered situations like that in many relationships, where you bump into certain relationships or people who don't inspire you. And it almost seems as if they feel strong when they see you looking weak. For some weird reason, they feel like they have more control or they're more empowered over you when they can sense in your vibration you're now in your victim conscious mode. You can seem like you're helpless, like you've made them seem like, I need you to feel my worth or my value. And so that might have happened to you at certain points in your life, but I really want you to always remember that you're in an age which we call the confluence age. Write that down, because it's a really important time. It's also called the diamond age. It's the age in which you've got to begin to turn deeply within yourself and have a relationship with the Supreme, with God, to begin to listen that there's no way whatever negativity anyone has ever told you, however your parents, your friends, your relatives, your boss looked at you and told you this, however your government, religions say, he goes, nope, I am so certain the God that I know is an energy of love and peace and purity and truth and joy, and that energy is so vast that I'm still trying to catch up to it. But I do know I am not what you're saying. So that means, here's the big part of this equation. In the similar way that I'm asking you to not listen to the comments that people make of you, it is essential that you stop listening to the comments you tell to yourself. Those words, those ideas, those feelings that you feed yourself because somewhere along the way you started to believe that you were less than. Something in us sometimes gets to a point that you feel like, I can't go anymore. I don't think I have it, so I'm going to stop here. But in the meanwhile, while I stop here, I'll blame everything else, because it feels some weird way, kind of like a sweet pain, when I blame other people for what's going on. So what I want you to do at the confluence age, which is this age, this is the age of your truth. And write that down, that you have now entered into the age of your truth, because this is the age of your real awakening. This is when you start to wake up until you get woke. You can't get woke until you have awakened. So to awaken is to begin to more value the energy and the vibration of having an energy, a personality, the way you think, the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you interact in your life. It's got to start to show, I am a peaceful being. I am a pure soul. I am joyful. I am loving. And I have my self-respect about me. That is my truth. So when you start to believe more in that intention and quality, it begins to show itself in your choices, because it's at the base of your sanskaras. Remember we spoke about sanskaras? So the sanskars of algae is one sanskar, and the sanskars of peace, purity, love, truth, and joy are the other sanskars. So we have these two vibrational forces that we're working with every single millimeter of a second in our lives. So when you're in your meditation, you're trying to be more awakened to this level. You're trying to serve this being in you. So your confluence age is your age of awakening and beginning to tap in and believe there is one loving, powerful person just waiting to ooze out of you 1,000,000 times over. Look out, world. They might not like me when I arrive. Because sometimes people just have issues with happy people. And sometimes, and I've seen this, you know, it hits our ego when it just seems like the other person is okay and you're a mess. It's not that you wish them to be bad, but it's like, darn it, can I have some of that the easy way? you know, and you just feel like it triggers stuff in you, like, I don't feel what she's feeling. I'm not where she's at. Look at how he's using his life. Look at what she's doing with her time, with his time. Look at how they're making it. And it can hit you. And what it can do, it can show you, am I not using me enough? And I think the reason why we don't feel that we're using ourselves enough is that we're not allowing God to use us enough. So we're very much in our own way, and He's trying to get in our way to use us, but we are in the way. And I felt that even for myself. So the confluence age is a relationship between the soul and the Supreme Soul. And when you are connected to the Supreme Being, you start to feel there is an awakening going on, and you're beginning to walk on the planet completely woke, which means you can't be deceived that easily, and your discerning power is very acute. And the more you're placed in situations and circumstances where you have to make conscious choices, and when you do, your discerning power increases and your wokeness increases. So that means folks can't come in front of you and try to fool you too easily. There will always be people in your life trying to fool you, and you will always try to fool people. But as you're getting more intelligent, more spiritually connected to your true sense of self, your true identity, your true worth, it reduces dramatically. And I can assure you this, that if you've ever felt deceived by people, it's because you too had a motive, and it was mixed. If you dig deep enough, and if you're honest enough and courageous enough, you just might see, but we don't talk about that. You know what I mean? So you're going to have to look at yourself honestly, and the more you can be honest, the quicker you can move in your spiritual evolution. So because time is changing, right? And we are changing. America, for example, is moving through what I would say an age that is like Kali Yuga, an Iron Age, what we call the Dark Age. So when we look at the Iron Age, we're actually looking at a state of consciousness. So if a lot of us, and it's not just America, let me take us off, it's everywhere. But imagine if 99% of the population was governed by algae, what is the vibration on the planet at this time? Exactly, and that's what we're up against. That's where we all are. And so why meditation and reflection is such an important practice is that the meditation and the reflection, especially moving our awareness into the confluence age, what it does, it gives me insight to recognize what is an Iron Aged behavior versus where I really actually want to go. So the age that we really are making effort to enter into is what we would call a more golden state, like a golden age experience. And I'd like you to imagine pure gold that isn't mixed with a lot of alloy. Back in the days, we used to have gold pendants and necklaces. We used to get it a lot from our Asian friends, my Asian friends, when I was younger. It was 24 karat gold. Do you remember that? Do they still have that? Right, so 24 karat gold, it used to be very easy to bend. Right, so when we start to become pure gold, some of the signs of that in our expression is we're flexible, we shine, there isn't a lot of mixture of algae, if at all any, but there is a strength about the gold even though it's flexible. And because of its flexibility, it knows how to move on the planet with grace. It is not harsh, it is not stubborn, it is not on the, like it doesn't just feel like it's like a stone. It's different, it's easy. So when we are in our golden aged state, I want you to imagine your personality in this state, 100%. And I'm going to do a little experiment with you now, which you're going to love. I want you to travel for a minute with the person next to you, just for 5 minutes, experiment with the person next to you. And I want you to imagine that you are now in a new birth. I know. And in your new birth, you have absolutely no recording of algae. How would you talk to the person? How would you greet them? What would be your vibe? 5 minutes. What do you like in your golden aged state? Turn to the person, experiment, talking with the person in your golden aged birth. Observe the feeling as well. So another minute or two. You're in your I love that. It's exactly how you'd be. That is exactly how we would be. That's exactly how we'd be. I love that. 1 more minute. 1 more minute. That was excellent. And you know what? It's just a thought away. You know, it's just a thought away, right? All right. Wasn't that delightful? And didn't that make your system feel better? And didn't you feel like you were being truthful to who you were supposed to be? Now do that 24/7. And what happens when you do it the 24/7, you start to feel like, oh my God, my iron aged sanskars are coming in, they're kicking in. And that's why we need to be consistent with the investment of our spiritual development. So spirituality isn't about a 7 days course or a 2-week course and I got me, I know what to do now. Is that there has to be some sincerity and commitment that I need this to be consistent for me in order for me to really reduce this energy. Now, I hate to take you where I'm going to take you, but now I want you both, you all to talk to each other like you're in the Iron Age, like, hey, it's November 12th, 2018. And it's funny, you don't want to go there, right? You see that? Okay, I love that because you don't even want to go there. You're like, oh God, do I really have to be me? And what happens, you can see it though. Like, how do I really talk to somebody in my Iron Age? I'd be like, hey girl. And then there's like, oh no, should I trust her? Should I talk to her? Oh, is she Indian? Oh. Does she know Pocahontas? You know, it's like all of these things can happen. Sorry. When you're in your Iron Age, these are the ways you talk. When you're in your Iron Age, that's the way you see one another. When you begin to see, oh, well, you know, all people in this color They're like that, right? Well, you know, I just want to be like this. All of that is ionized consciousness. So whenever you hear conversations that seem so low vibrational, you become very clear. That person is not creating good karma, and I have to bless them. Because this is not the energy that can sustain itself much longer. Darkness cannot sustain itself. And it gets tiring to live from a place of algae consciousness. So what you're learning in the Raja Yoga meditation is that through your consistent practice, and it is a practice, you cannot pick up your spirituality and do it only when you feel like doing it. And I tell you this, you've got to come up with a timetable that is consistent, which cannot be broken. Which means you've got to practice waking up at a reasonable time. You've got to begin to focus on the kind of information you bring in your energy regularly every day. You have to be mindful of your conscious diet, but you've got to pay a lot of attention to the relationship you're having with yourself and God, because it will reflect in how you treat people, how you make your choices, how you earn your money, how you spend your money, how you take care of your body. Okay? So I want you to imagine that the soul is flipping back and forth with these emotions and feelings. And there are times in which you're like, okay, you know, nothing's too bad, nothing's too good. It's like, it's like a tie score. Well, I don't know who's going to win. But one of the most fascinating ages to me is the age called the Copper Age. And we use we use these materials like as a symbol, because what makes the Copper Age interesting, it's that, and I want you to imagine, just travel with me. If you're 100% love, peace, purity, truth, and joy, and you're going through a cycle, it means you're using the energy, because entropy takes place. It's a universal law. And so it's not that we can stay 100% golden aged. So something in the spirit is going to be reduced. It's like when we were babies, we don't stay babies, but the record of my innocence is sitting still in me, but it's not always activated. So just imagine if you're going through many lifetimes, 1 lifetime, 2 lifetimes, 5 lifetimes, 10 lifetimes, however amount of number you think you might be on your journey, or even in 1 lifetime alone. All that goodness in you started to seep out, and for the first time, you started to recognize some interesting emotions. For the first time, algae begins at this age, and when it starts, it's just 2%. So I don't feel too bad. But as it keeps growing in me without me knowing what's happening, it increases. And traveling in my consciousness is my truth, and then I inherit algae, and without me knowing, I'm using algae, and it's increasing until I reach such a state in my soul's journey that there's some pain, I can't describe it. My money's not right, my relationships are not right, my head's not right, my health is not right. Or if you don't even want to think about you, then look at the whole world. Then forget blaming yourself. But then look at the rest of the whole world. Is their head right? Are their bodies okay? Are their relationships going well? Does everyone have enough money to pay their bills? So then something in you feels like, but what's going on? If it's not even me, what's going on? And that's how the vibration of algae, as I said in the last class, it is a taking energy. So what algae has been doing consciously on the planet is that it keeps feeding from the soul. You know, in many religious traditions, they talk about the energy of the devil or whatever. We always say it's just the algae, and the algae is taking all of your power. And the power that the algae is taking out of you is your goodness. And you're getting so used to being this person, and then you see so many other representations of it, you're like, what's wrong with you? And that's why when we're meditating, our clarity and discernment becomes super, super clearer, that we become mature in deciding what wolf do I intend to feed? Do I intend to feed this wolf? Or am I going to feed the kind and loving wolf? Because eventually, whoever you feed, whatever consciousness you feed, that's what travels with you. So this is what you're learning in this course. And you're at this very pivotal point, the confluence age, where you're absolutely at this transition point in your life, where you're really offered an opportunity to look at yourself honestly, with a little bit of courage, and you're going to take some time and choose just one or two few things that you wish to begin to do for you to optimize this personality about you. Okay. So let's go back and finish off. We've traveled down the road of the soul. We've traveled down the road of God being the supreme soul. We've also identified the fact that the soul is made up of the qualities of love and peace and purity and truth and joy. We've realized in our own way, in our own space, that we know deeply we are these people, but we're not it always. We express this quality sometimes, and sometimes not at the far-reaching vibrational force we wish to. Don't you wish to have a peaceful, pure thought towards someone you love that would just heal them? Haven't you heard mystics and prophets in the past have touched somebody and just healed them? I think it's because they had the vibration mental capacity. And a lot of us focus on healing hands touch. No, I think it's a mental process. And so if I can raise my vibrations at such a quality of expression that it can't be hidden in my thoughts and my words and my vibes and my behavior, in the way I carry myself, in the way I eat, in the way I sleep, in the way I sit, then that is making its contribution on the planet naturally. And I'm being truthful to me. So your whole meditation practice, and I invite you to percolate on this from today until we meet again on Wednesday. Are you here? Is this where you are now consciously, or are you here? Because we're all hoping to get here. You can only be in the golden age when this is constant. But in the iron age, it's the two of them coming in and out. But the energy of the intensity of that algae is so strong that we're like, what do I do to get it out of my way? So the consistent effort, the consistent practice, the consistent commitment to a better version of me is what my spirit is asking for. So you have to you might have to make some sacrifices along the way, but don't forget that whatever you sacrifice is not the sacrifice that matters, but it begins to reveal what you value the most. And so if you can more focus on what you value the most, then it becomes easy for you to decide, I don't think I need to do this anymore. I don't think I need to do it. You're too important to me. This is too important for me. And so we begin to realize that sacrifice is not a sacrifice. It's actually an opportunity and a gift. When you let go of what's been holding you back, when you let go of the negative, when you let go of the weakness, that part of you that feels like you can't go anymore, you can't do anymore, when you let go of that limitation, that's when the good starts to reveal what's actually there in you. So that's the food for thought as we close off on the continuation of karma, but also the fact that we are in a cycle. And we are in a cycle of change, which is the inevitable. And one of the greatest pains that we endure is that we resist change, thinking that life is linear when it isn't. It's cyclical. Even what we're going through as a country, we've been here before. It's just that now the intensity is high because of social media, so we're getting it 24/7. Before maybe we heard down the road, did you hear what happened to Bo Bob or something? And we heard about it a month later. Here we're getting it every second, every day. Then we have to choose. So because there are more of us on the planet, the vibration of the intensity is stronger, which actually means we have to be more intelligent. Because it's attacking the greatest resource of civilization, which is the human soul. And if your soul is consistently attacked by negativity, uncertainty, fear, and doubt, you become numb and you stop living the life you're supposed to live because you get used to that energy. So you have to be very mindful of what algae is up to. Recognize that you can choose to be awakened and stay awake. And know that you are moving towards a state like how you felt when you spoke to each other with your dignity. You had no issue. You didn't care if the person was black, white, rich, or poor, because everyone in the room had dignity. And that's the culture we will create. We will make that world happen. It'll either happen through tragedy, which we're not signing up for, or it will happen through love, which is why you're here. Okay? So in our class on Wednesday, we'll talk a little bit about the antiquity of souls, who are new souls, who are older souls, and how are we all connected to each other. And I always use the example of a movie theater. God forbid, when you come in halfway in a movie, you're trying to catch up, and you're like, what happened? And somebody next to you can tell you what you missed, but you're like, oh, okay. But you're a detached listener of what you've missed. But there's nothing like being at the beginning of the movie till the end of the movie. So life is like that. The oldest souls will enter the cycle of time at its very beginning, and they will be here at the very end before it starts a new beginning. So they're the ones we call the wisdom keepers. They're the wise voices. You can turn to them. They have a lot to share with you because at a soul level, they've been through so much of life. Living in and out of so many experiences and through so many ages, so many generations of things that they can tell you so much is just innate in their sanskaras. So it's good to be around older souls because they will guide the way for you in a different way. They'll take you back to values and principles and ethics. The newer souls will be like, let's go party and pay no bills. And what happens, it's like it's all easy for them and it's okay. And then you have to begin to accept, but don't they deserve their form of happiness too? And so sometimes you'll find that the newer souls tend to look at things from a different lens. They're doing nothing wrong. What can end up very rough and challenging for you is if you are an old soul and you fall in love with a new soul and you're like, we don't see eye to eye, I don't know how we ended up. So sometimes you can have some of these struggles at a soul-to-soul level. So what we will talk about in Wednesday's class is a little bit more about the soul journey, but also we will go into the role of each religion and what they've actually offered our lives and how we can respect and understand the various forms of different religions. And where do we want to stay on the tree? Personally, I believe we all come from every religion. But the most important thing is have a connection to the seed, to the source. And then you can embrace all faiths. All right? Okay, so we'll close off here. Any questions, any thoughts? Thank you for doing this, because we're closed today, believe it or not, and look at you, you opened up the museum today. So on Wednesday, what we'll do, for those who couldn't attend the class today, what I'll do is on Wednesday's class, we will cover some of this, but then we will go into the tree of religion. We'll go into the tree of religion and the antiquity, who's an old soul, who's a new soul. So when you come on Wednesday, we will do that part. And for those who miss this section, they will stay back and go through that part afterwards. So then you could leave or you could sit in and join in on that session too. All right? Okay, so you enjoyed it? So can I see all the golden aged souls? You know, all golden aged souls are like prince and princesses. They're like, hey, you know, because everything inside of the soul is so full. It's like, I'm full. I'm okay. It's such a powerful energy. All right, so let's have a little meditation and have a wonderful rest of their Veterans Day, and eat well, think well, and do well. All right, Om Shanti. Thanks to Santosh for doing all of the technical stuff today.
Stepping inwards. I relax. I relax my body completely. And gently, very gently, I step into silence. I step inside myself. And in the silence, I disconnect from the things around me. I relax. I am still. And for the next 10 minutes, I will remain inside myself. I will remain in the silence, concentrating and keeping myself disconnected from all the things around me. Taking this journey inward, I wish to know myself. I want to be with myself and not think of anything else. Beyond worry, beyond fears, beyond the noises of the outside, I become still. Gently, I concentrate, and I ask myself, who am I? Who am I really? Am I this name, this body, this nationality? Or is there something more to my existence? In the silence, I focus my mind and concentrate on the center of my forehead. And as I focus, I visualize a point of light, a point of eternal energy. I understand. I am this light. I am this point of spiritual energy. I am here. I am the soul, a point of living light, the spiritual being. This is who I am. And as I journey deep, very deep within myself, I remember, I realize that I have great resources, great power within myself. I am a soul, and inside me lies all my experiences, my identity, and all the things I need to make my life happier and more peaceful. Who am I? I am a spiritual being, a point of eternal light. I let these thoughts penetrate my mind. I concentrate on these thoughts completely. I am a soul. I am immortal energy. I am peace. Peace is my original strength. Within myself, I visualize a pool of energy. This energy is the energy of peace. I go deeper and deeper within my peace. I remain in this experience. I remain within this consciousness. My original and deepest quality is of peace. Peace is my original nature. Peace is my original strength. And the deeper I go into myself, the deeper I go into my original peace. I am no longer distracted by all the things outside me. I remain in this consciousness. There is only peace, only silence. Peace and silence. I feel myself becoming free. I feel myself becoming stronger. I feel myself becoming lighter, stable. As my thought, so my consciousness. I allow this thought and this feeling of pure peace and harmony to flow throughout my being. Now, peace flows through me. Peace, harmony, freedom belong to me. I am strong. I am full. I am content. I am in peace. Now in this silence, I am completely inside, very quiet, very still. I am at one with myself. I find contentment. I am at peace. I begin to remember myself. I begin to understand myself. I begin to accept myself. And as I remember, and as I accept, I respect my original being, and love emerges. I feel confident. I feel secure. I feel there is a great stability now. There is strength, and there is the power to create a life of quality, a life of meaning, a life of purpose. I have found my focal point, my inner compass to direct my external life. And as I remain here, inside, I ask myself, where do I come from? In the stillness, I hear the silence. I listen, and I realize that my original home is very, very far from this world of sound, of time, of matter. I come from a world of eternal light, a world of silence, a world of peace. That is my home. This is where I come from. And with my thought, I travel upwards to the world of liberation, the world of nirvana. Let me remain in this consciousness of the self, of the peaceful self, and the peaceful home. Peace, harmony, and silence. Let me remain here. Peace and silence. Only silence.